Dear user of FLARED, here I am, Beniamino della Torre, with a new functionality that I want to show you. We've worked at this functionality a lot, and is intended to be used by people who works in cycles and wants to have lens flare in their scenes too. So here I go to the preferences, here I go to install, and I go to my desktop. Okay, this is my version. Maybe your version will be different. If you've bought FLARED on the Blendermarket, you will go there in the download area and you will find the new version. If you've bought FLARED on blenderflare.com, you'll receive an email with the download link. And if you bought on Gumroad, you will go there and find on Gumroad too this new version. I don't know, at the moment it's a beta version because we have to test it. Maybe there are some bugs to fix. Anyway, we've made a big job in fixing a lot of them in these last 2 weeks. And so let's install it and take a look at how it works. Okay, I enable it. Okay, 167, close here and open here. This should work on new release of Blender 2.83 as 2.90. Anyway, let's work at a scene made in cycles. So I turn down the samples because I don't want too much time to render. I put this in view into my camera view, okay, like this, and I'll create more light, and I assign different flares to different sources. Okay, let's use different flare colors. So this is my camera, this is the first light. I will add this flare to this light. Let's go to the preview. Here I want to add a green flare, and here I want to add orange flare. Okay, so this is good. Now we have these flares. I can move the scene. They are following my my camera as they should do. Okay, and here is something new that we didn't have in the old versions that is very useful, I think. Now when you select the flare, you will select it here too. So if you want to modify this flare, you just select it here and it will be selected here, and you are sure that you're going to modify this flare, because it was hard to understand which flare you were going to modify when you had too much flares into your scene. So now it's like that. Okay, the problem is that now if you render, you will render something really awful because no, okay, now it doesn't happen because we have a function that will deactivate your flares when you render them in cycles, because there's no way to render them in cycles. So if I go there, I couldn't see the flare. That is right, because cycles cannot interpret correctly the shaders of these flares. So what we can do now, we can do this. We can select the flare by clicking this arrow here, and we can use this function, move selected flares on a new EV scene. This is the key of everything. It will ask for creating new nodes, because what we're gonna do now is to duplicate this scene, create a linked scene that is equal to this, and that will have only the camera and the flares inside it, and will be rendered in EV at the same time that you will render the scene in cycles. So if you are able to work with composite node, you could create your composite node by hand. And if you already have composite nodes into your scene, you don't have to create your own nodes, because this will delete all your nodes setup. This is the most important things. So if you have already your composite node, you will have to composite these two scenes by hand. If you don't have a composite node, this function will automatically activate your composite node and set up a composition that will mix the flare to your cycle scene. It's very easy. It's not so difficult. So now I'll do OK. And what's happening here is this. Now I have my scene and an EV scene. The EV scene will contain the flared. We don't have to touch this scene. We don't have to modify anything into this scene. We have to come back here. If we want, we will be able to modify our flares again and again. There's no problem in this. And when we are ready, we can make our render. And it will render the scene in cycles and the scene in EV. In EV, it will render the flares, and in cycle, all the other things. And then they will be mixed in the compositing node into this compositing nodes. There are two scenes. This is the EV scenes, and this is the cycle scenes, and they will add it by this node into the composite. So you have this this final scene that it's okay. We've made a lot of try, and it seems to work good. Anyway, there are other things that we can view in deep, because there are more cases now, as the last release that we've made will be able to follow the active cam inside your animation. So now let's try to duplicate this cam here. I duplicate it 4 times, so we'll have 4 cameras. Okay. And in the frame 1, we'll have a marker that will bind camera to markers. Okay, so we'll have this first camera. The frame 10 will have this camera active. So I'm changing this camera. In the 20 frame, we will have this camera active, and in the 30th, we will have this one. So now I've made a camera change to use Multicam. Now I have to activate this camera follow. When I activate this, this flare will follow the active camera. So now I'll check this, this, and this, and so we will see that the flare will move following the camera. Okay, this is very good, because if I want to make an animation using Multicam, I can do this. Okay, but there is a but. As I have already moved my flares to the EV scene, the problem is that if I go in the EV scene, I won't have all the cameras, because the cameras have been added after I moved my flare on the EV scene. So what I can do now to relink all the EV scene to the elements that I added here, it's very easy. I just have to update EV scene. If I make this and I set OK, we can see that now we have all the cameras here. You don't have to do anything into this scene. This scene doesn't have to be touched or modified. Just stay into the cycle scene. And now you can see that if I go in this frame and I make a render, it will correctly render this scene with the active camera, and if I go to another frame, it will do the same. So this is very easy and seems to be really functional. If you don't like to work with nodes, you don't have to touch composition nodes because there's no need to use them. If you know how to use them, you will see that this composition node is really easy. You can activate a viewer node, and you just have one more control here that could be useful, because there is this factor that could be set to 0 or could be amplified here, and so you have one more control on your flares. Anyway, what you will do into your scene, you will see it into your render. So you can still modify all these flares to match what you like to see, what you need. Okay, and Flare will do it. Okay, that's all. If you had problem with this version, please write us, because we need to know all your feedback. They will be very useful. And thank you for watching, and have a good time with FLARED. Thank you to everybody. Bye bye.